what's up, everybody? Welcome to Too Real with Mike and Jillian, a.k.a. Jillian Rosado, a.k.a. Jesmiel. What did they call you? So before we got married, I don't know why this just literally just came to my head.
You love this story.
Before we got married, you were at a club?
I was at a bachelorette down in Ocean City, Maryland.
Okay. And then somebody was trying to kick it to you.
We were like hanging out with these kids, and I was like 34, I think. This kid was like 21 years old, and he was like trying to like schmooze me, and we were all heavily intoxicated. Pre-Jesus.
Pre-Jesus. Put that in there.
And he kept on trying to talk to me, but he was calling me Jesmiel.
Jesmiel.
And I'm like, my name is not Jesmiel. I don't know where that came from. So for a while, my friends kept calling me Jesmiel. And that's where that story originated.
Because like when he asked you for your name, were like the music loud? And
yeah. It was the combination of loud music and copious amounts of alcohol. But yeah. So Jesmiel.
Jesmiel.
I usually, when I tell people my name is Jillian, they think on the phone, they think I'm saying Joanne.
Oh yeah.
Which like,
I
guess I get it. I don't know. But Jesmiel was like a whole new level.
Oh, when you're at Starbucks, they spell it with a G.
Yes. Yeah.
Gillian.
But you know what? And I know I like clowned on this on the first episode when you were like too real with the Rosados. I think that flows better.
With the Rosados?
I think it like gives me Alan Thicke vibes, but it reminds me of, was it Family
Ties? Is that no, Growing Pains.
Growing Pains, yes.
Yeah.
We're totally dating ourselves. Alan Thicke is Robin Thicke's father, for people who don't know who Alan Thicke is.
I don't think people know who Robin Thicke is. I don't think young people know who Robin Thicke is.
Well, he got canceled.
Yes, he did.
So
Right.
But he's on some show now.
Is he?
He's on, is it The Masked Singer or something like that?
Oh, yes, he is on The Masked
Which I'm
Singer.
like, so I guess he didn't get canceled because here he is.
Yeah,
I always found him very creepy. But no, I'm a big Alan Thicke fan. He's
Alan
dead
Thicke.
now, though, isn't he?
I think
he died.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. Yeah.
But yeah, Too Real with the Rosados gives me Growing Pains vibes, but I think I like it.
Oh, well, too late. The
I
thumbnails
feel like
are designed and everything
you
like
can
that.
fix it really.
Mike and
Because
Jillian.
who's Mike and Jillian? Like no one.
We. That's.
But they
we
know
are.
you as Mike Rosado and me as Jillian Rosado. So Too Real with the Rosados is more identifiable.
Can we make like a theme song? Show me that smile again.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway, so Jillian Rosado. And hey, here's a conversation I want to talk about today. Something that we run into a lot is, I guess what I would title this this episode, I would call it being triggered plus emotional warfare.
That sounds really fancy.
Right? It does. But the reason I say that is because, well, number one, you and I are both emotional people.
Yes.
We're passionate people.
Yes. It's in our blood.
It is in our blood. And like you're Italian and I'm Puerto Rican. And so when we argue, it's war.
There used to be this ongoing debate at one of my old jobs, and they would say, is Jill hot-headed or short-tempered? And I'm like, is there a difference?
Both. So we're both emotional people, but I think in our marriage, we've grown to learn to own our emotions and to differentiate the moments where I can't put on you that I'm feeling this way, right? Sometimes it's sometimes there is a cause and effect, but sometimes the cause of it is not you, it's me.
Yeah.
And I have to own that.
Yes.
So I want to be cautious because some people are going to want to dismiss this whole conversation because you'll be like, well, you're denying people's feelings. No, I'm not denying people's feelings. I'm just asking all of us to own our crap.
Yeah.
Emotionally.
Yeah.
Because now more than ever, because we have, phrases like that's my truth and this and that, we negate the other side by saying things like I'm triggered, right? So
yeah.
We hear it because of our line of work being in ministry. People are triggered all the time. We
by
talked
everything.
About it, right. We talked about it at the last episode. We talked about sometimes people are triggered by the word hustle.
Yeah.
Right? Because the word hustle, in their minds, the word hustle has hurt them. Right? Or what's another word that people get triggered by? the word excellence, right? One of our values is excellence.
If you're watching the video portion of this episode, you're going to see a lot of eye rolling out of me. And I'm sorry, but that's just...
I think they heard it. It was so loud they heard it.
Did you hear the eye roll?
They heard the eye roll. But I think like people are triggered by excellence because that's more performance-based culture and all this other stuff. And so humanity always loves to overcorrect. And so since that hurt me, we're going to swing it back the opposite way. But I've learned through counseling and overcorrection is never healthy.
No.
You have to, the target shouldn't be something that's anti that thing you went through. The target should be what is health. Yeah. And then let that be the guiding light. Let that be the goal. Let that be the target. Just to get vulnerable, like I used to, grew up, I didn't have a relationship with my biological father. Phenomenal relationship with my mother and my stepdad, but not a good relationship with my father. So I used to think I had an anti-vision for my life. As long as I'm not like my father, I'm okay. And through counseling and through life experiences and life just tenderizing my heart, I had to realize that like that's a bad thing because they're not everyone is completely evil. Yeah. Shocker, right? There might be some good characteristics in my biological father that I'm missing out on because I'm saying as long as I'm everything not like him, I'm okay, right? So I had to learn that overcorrection isn't the healthiest pathway to my healing and wholeness. Yeah. So that's what we deal with. People are constantly triggered. And we had to come to the realization that, like, I can't be responsible for everyone's trigger. Yes. That glossary of trigger words continues to increase on a daily basis. There's going to be a point where I can't even speak without somebody in the room getting triggered. Yeah. Right? And so it gets exhausting. And you and I both have said this, like, especially people who are coming from other churches that were hurt by other churches. There has to be a point where I have to tell people, I can't sit around and wait to be the next pastor that hurts you. Do you understand how unhealthy that is? I can't. Yeah. You have to, I'm not asking you to blindly trust me. I'm asking you to stop blindly mistrusting me because that makes all of our jobs. And all I want to do is help you. But I can't help you if you're constantly smacking my hand or constantly telling me you can't say this, can't say that. And so that's the part where I feel like people have weaponized their emotions. Yeah. I want to validate your emotions, right? I want to hear your emotions. But I think we have to be cautious of when you weaponize it, you reject correction, you stop conversations, right? I can't talk about it. So you're lazy. Let's just say you're lazy. And I'm saying, hey, I need more. Can't use the word hustle. What can I use? Tenacity. Yeah. Intuition. And I have to like roll. And then sometimes I'm so filtered that I don't even say what the heck I need to say. Yeah. Right. And then you walk away unchallenged and I walk away frustrated because they didn't hear what I needed to say in order to help you out and help out the organization. Does that make sense? Yeah. And that person ends up missing out on healing from whatever that wound is and missing out on growing into like a new, better version of themselves because everyone's walking on eggshells around them. Right. And it's just like, I don't want to live that way. And I would hope that nobody else wants to live that way. But like, it's really comfortable to sit around and be able to say whatever you want. And everyone looks at you like you're so fragile. So they're not going to call you out on it. And it's just, you're living your merry little life, just encompassed in that trauma or whatever it is going unchecked. Right. And that's the hard part. When you present fragility, we as leaders and people who are trying to develop leaders, we tend to be tempted to not challenge them because of their fragility. Yeah. And then when we don't some days it's not worth the headache of it. Right. Just being real. Right. Someday it's not worth the headache. And so I hate the feeling of walking away saying, oh, that person has so much potential, but they're capping themselves. I'm not capping you. Yeah. You're capping yourself when you don't do the work of healing. And so the other day, our boys had a big sleepover. and a bunch of boys were in our house. So our house smelled wonderful, by the way.
And there was no food left within the first hour.
Right.
I love it though. Like some of them feel so comfortable in our house that they go right in the fridge, they go right in the cabinets, they know where everything is. One of their friends actually cleans my kitchen.
Come on.
And I'm
Shout
like,
out
you
AJ.
AJ is my boy, because I'm like, you need to talk to my children, because he yells at them. He's like, what are you doing? That goes in the dishwasher. Rinse it off.
Right.
Da-da-da. I'm like, his mom did so good.
So good.
She did so good. I'm failing.
Yeah. Shout
out AJ's mom.
Yeah. But and so they leave and they leave a mess.
Yes.
Right? And so,
except for when AJ's over.
Right. Except for when AJ's over. But I go to our boys and I say, all right, you guys got to clean this up. And they go, well, I didn't do it. They did it. And I said, hey, it's not your fault, but it's still your responsibility. Mm-hmm. Right. So I think that goes with the same thing with people who have gone through some traumatic stuff, mm-hmm. Who have legit moments where they were the victim. Mm-hmm. I get it. It is not your fault. Mm-hmm. Right. It is not your fault. It is not your fault. Where's that from?
It's from it's my favorite movie, Good Will Hunting.
Good Will Hunting. It's not your fault.
I picked the spoon.
Right. So it's not your fault, but it's still your responsibility. You're mm-hmm. healing. You're damaged. I get it, and I feel sorry, and I empathize. I sympathize. I feel that for you. But at the end of the day, it is still your responsibility. It's still your responsibility. We were having a conversation with our friends from Maryland. They came up a couple weeks ago. And they were talking about how my one friend, sometimes in the middle of arguments, and his wife was right there. So they were you could tell that we were kind of talking about them. And they were saying that sometimes in arguments, somebody will throw the nuke, right? The nuclear bomb. Yeah. And they said, you're being narcissistic.
Yeah.
Right. Or what was the other thing? You're being arrogant, or you're being something, right? And they always drop those bombs in the middle of an argument. Mm-hmm. And the question we came up with in the conversation was, why do those things only come up in arguments? Like, if you're really concerned about somebody being narcissistic, if you're really concerned about somebody being arrogant, why doesn't that come up anywhere else outside of an argument?
Yeah, because if you really cared about the person, you would be like, hey, I noticed that you've been doing this and you've been doing that, and like, why do you do those things, rather than, hey, you're a narcissist. Right. You know what I mean?
Right. But I think sometimes
it's so accusatory and shaming.
Right. But we drop it in the middle of an argument, mm-hmm. and what that does is, like, what can you say against that? Yeah. Right.
No, I'm not. And then it gets into this defensive tug of war.
Right. Or I love it when people are like, sometimes there's some my family members, they do this just to trigger me, and they say you're so sensitive, and I'm like, I want to be like, no, I'm not, but then they I'm trapped. Yeah. They got me right. Yeah. The minute I'm like, no, I'm not. Then sensitive.
You're being sensitive.
Then I'm being sensitive, right? So in that, like, I think sometimes we got to just be aware. Sometimes it's accurate. Sometimes that person is narcissistic, and it comes out in an argument because it's in the heat of battle, and you say it. But what it does is that it creates spaces for people to be manipulated by those huge terms, especially mm-hmm. nowadays in society, huge terms where just like, that's it. So even if the person is right, they're categorized as a narcissist or an arrogant person, and there's nothing you could say about it, and the victim wins, mm-hmm. right? And so that victim then turns the other person into a villain, and now it's no longer about the actual conversation. Yeah. It's about the fact that you've been identified now. And
you could take any conversation and, like, any tiff that you're having, like, you didn't load the dishwasher. You left the dishes in the sink. Right. And it goes back and forth. Well, you're a narcissist. And it's like, It's so damaging because it starts off as something so silly, but you throw that nuke, as you want to call it, into it. And it's like, it brings everything to a whole new level. Right. And then it's like, well, like you said, it turns the victim into the victor, when it's like, right, come on, man.
Right. And how many times have we had huge arguments where towards the end of the argument, we don't even know what we're arguing about?
No.
Right? Because if the only way to make a drama a blockbuster is that you need a victim, a villain, and a conspiracy. Yeah. And when those three things get added to the mix of the actual conversation, we're not arguing about it anymore. We're arguing against each other. Yeah. And then nothing's communicated. nothing gets better because somebody's walking away a loser. And that is not the proper way to do relationships and communication. But we got to be careful about dropping those nukes. And that's why I called it emotional warfare. Like dropping those nukes are like, well, you hurt me, right? Okay, maybe I did hurt you. But the minute now, like, because you're coming as a victim, there's no space to process where each of us went wrong.
Yeah.
There's no space to own, because no one holds the victim responsible.
Yeah.
Right? No one.
It's funny. I think it was 2 months ago at this point, we were attending this seminar with Steve Cuss with Managing Leadership Anxiety.
Yeah.
And if you're battling with someone who struggles with anxiety and you're throwing stuff at them, like
Right.
he made this example of someone saying something that was their emotion, and I don't know if I'm going to do this justice. And instead of you getting off the treadmill, he calls it, of anxiety, and saying, hey, like, that's something you're battling with, and that's honestly not my responsibility.
Exactly.
And giving that back to them, you can stay on this anxiety treadmill and you're running, and you're taking all this stuff that's not your responsibility. You didn't cause the issue. You're not, like, it's all on that person, but they love to throw it on you. Am I explaining that right?
Yeah.
That was like such a big light bulb for me, because I'm on that treadmill 24/7.
Yeah.
And to be vulnerable, we had an argument like a week or so ago, and you said something, and I said, I'm sorry that you're struggling with that, but that's not my responsibility, and that's something you need to figure out for yourself.
Absolutely.
But in the moment, he threw it at me, and I was like, and I was wise enough,
That's
and
good.
not like, I paused, and rather than responding emotionally like I normally do because I'm a hothead, I paused for a second and I recognized, like, that's not on me. That's something you need to recognize, you need to deal with, and you need to heal through. But we're so terrified to say that to other people. That was big for me to say it to you, and you're
Huge.
my husband.
Yeah.
But if someone's writing an email about this and that, oh, you said excellence and that's blah, blah, blah. Like, hey,
That's
that's
not my
not
problem.
my responsibility. I'm sorry that you were hurt in the past by someone with that model. But that's something that you need to work through, and I can help you. I can refer people for you, but you're not going to place that on me.
Right.
And that's very liberating for you if you're the type of person that runs on that treadmill 24/7. And that's also really empowering, and like that light bulb moment for that person that's putting it on you. You're helping them through it. If they don't want it, if they want to throw it back in your face, then you can be like, you know what, like, sorry,
Yeah.
and walk away. Like,
Yeah.
you've done your part. But it could be something that pushes that person into such a growth period in their life and healing period,
Right.
that I wish we all had the courage, myself included, to do that more.
Yeah, 100%. I think, and thank you for putting my junk out there.
That's something you have to deal with.
I love everything you said except one thing. When you was like, I'm sorry you went through that. I had a side conversation with Steve Cuss when we were at that seminar.
And I know we shouldn't say I'm sorry.
Right.
And I'm still trying to find the language, and I hope that you're going to tell us what he said.
Yeah.
Because this is something I struggle with. People will be like, well, I don't like this. Well, why are you doing that? And my gut, my like immediate reaction is, I'm sorry you feel that way,
Yeah.
which I'm not sorry you feel that way, because
can't
I did
apologize
nothing
for that.
wrong. I'm
Yeah.
not apologizing for something that somebody else did.
Right.
What is the right way to handle that?
It grieves me that you're feeling that way, right? So like, because
It shows that emotion, that
shows
compassion.
that emotional connection and compassion. It grieves me that you're feeling that way.
Write that down like that.
yeah.
I want to text that to myself right now.
Yeah.
It grieves me.
Yeah, it grieves me that you're feeling that way. So it's not like you're dismissing that person's emotions, right? This podcast is not about us teaching you to dismiss people's emotion. I am teaching you how to dismiss people's putting their responsibility on you. You have to be cautious, and this is what I did to Jill. You have to be cautious with people who act like the victim with problems they created. Ooh, you get that?
Yeah.
You got to be cautious.
Did you hear that? Ooh.
Ooh, yeah. You got to be cautious with people who act like the victim and problems they created, because this is what they'll do. They'll use their victimization to manipulate others. And for so long, there's some people who have gone through trauma. I don't think they do it intentionally, but I think subliminally they have learned that, I could reject correction by saying, woe is me.
Yeah.
I could reject responsibility by saying, woe is me. And I want to be the champion of people who are like, okay, That happened.
Yeah.
Right? But you are not defined by that moment. I flippin' hate the term defining moments. You're not defined by that moment, right?
You're defined by how you walk out of that moment.
Exactly. And it's not the experience that defines you. It's what you're walking away from the experience.
Yeah.
You could walk away with a W or you could walk away with an L, right? And so I come from the standpoint of like, we need to have growth mentality, not a fixed mentality.
Yeah.
A fixed mentality says this is the way it is and nothing's going to change. Where a growth mentality says, okay, I didn't lose, I learned.
Yeah.
Right? Let's switch that L. You didn't lose, you learned something. So that you can move better. That's a growth mentality. But so many people are paralyzed as victims. And again, I'm not saying you do this intentionally. Maybe some of you do. Let me just call you out.
Yeah.
Let me just be 100 with you. Some of you know darn well what you're doing.
Yep.
Right? Knock it the freak
Hunter
off.
does that all the time.
Oh my
he'll be
gosh.
in trouble for something, then he'll come in.
Hunter's
like,
our youngest.
Yes, and he'll be like, Mom, do you want to watch All American with me? Let's make tea and let's do this and da da da. And I'm like, bro, you're in trouble. Like,
Right,
what?
right.
But he knows the angle to like play it, and I'm like,
right.
oh.
They-
Can
you
you
know-
give us some other examples of like what we're talking about here that people can connect with that they may have experienced in their lives?
Like with people using victimization
Yes.
as manipulation?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that might be helpful because some people might not even be aware of it. So
Right.
nothing like crazy deep, but like something common that people could experience.
Yeah, well, when people sometimes people go, hey,
Even outside of church context,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
a lot of people listening to this aren't from a church
church.
background.
let's just say, for instance, you are looking for a relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we all create these lists in our heads, right? And so as you're looking for a relationship, you'll go, okay, my last boyfriend or girlfriend was 1, 2, 3.
I had a
4.
rule in my 20s that I would never date another person named Jason again. Because I dated so many Jasons, because that's like the boys' name of the 90s. And like they never worked out. And it was probably my fault because I was just blind to like everything.
Right.
But like, yeah, I'm like, I'm never dating a Jason again.
Right.
Done.
Right.
If we met and your name was Jason, I wouldn't have
It's a wrap.
talked to you. Yeah.
No. My choices were, I think my mom was either going to call me, I think my first name was Matthew. So your brother's name is Matthew.
Yes.
So maybe that would have been a deal breaker too, because you didn't want to date somebody with your brother's name. But no, never Jason though. So thank God.
Yeah.
But so you start creating this list, right? And so they can't be this, they can't be that, you know. And I'm just going to call you out. Sometimes those things are stupid that you put on their list.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
It can't be a lawyer. It can't be white collar. Can't be blue collar. Can't.
I know people. They're like, no more Italians.
Yeah.
I can't
you
date
know.
another Italian guy. They're all crazy.
And so what you start doing is you start demonizing this list, and if you talk to anyone right now that's dating in their late 30s and 40s, it's already hard, right? And so again, you create this thing, and because those people hurt me, and so you get defensive around those types of people,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so what I suggest would be, forget characteristics for a second, and just talk about the condition of the characteristics of their heart.
Yeah.
And so that's healthy, right? Because if I said, I'm never going to date a brunette with blue eyes ever again, I would have missed out on you.
Yeah.
Right? But again, you become victimized by those things, and you're going to miss out on what are the possibilities of the best type of life you actually want to live.
Yeah.
Because you're carrying that burden onto other people that weren't even there, right? That weren't even there to experience what you experienced. And you're demonizing this list where it had nothing to do. Blue eyes didn't hurt you.
Yeah.
Right? Bald heads didn't hurt you.
Yeah.
Jason didn't hurt you, girl. Right?
That's debatable.
The name itself didn't hurt you.
Yes.
So you have to then just the more you walk through life, don't define what's the villain. Define who the hero is more.
Yeah.
Right? And define what health is more. And I think that's a good example of not just playing the victim. So that's like in relationships. But I also think too, like, it's people who are like, well, you know, actually this was me. I grew up without a dad, so nobody really challenged me, and I don't do well with bosses. I don't do well being told what to do. Get over yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to me. Get over
Yeah.
yourself. Learn to heal from that, right? Like, we need people to challenge us. We need people to get up in our faces. And I used to use that used to manipulate people. Like, you got to understand, I didn't grow up that way. So you got to come at me a little softer right now. You got to ask me. Don't tell me.
Or people that are like, they're so fragile, you have to sandwich method them, which is like my least favorite thing in the world. Like, you'll do that to me. So I'm like, don't you sandwich method me.
And if you know what sandwich method is, like a compliment, then you give them the meat of the challenge, and then you compliment them again.
I just like, I hate it because I feel like it, and I know some people need that, but I don't agree because I feel like it diffuses the essence of what you're trying to get at.
Right.
Like, you're creating these fake encouragements just so that you can be like, yo, you're showing up for work late every day.
Right.
What are we doing? But hey, you do a really great job here. But like, you're showing up for work late every day, and like, I need you to be on time.
Right.
But like, we really value you.
Right.
And it's like, how serious are they taking that challenge when you're like, you're doing great, we really value you, but like, you show up late every day. So in their mind, they're like, well, they think I'm really great and they really value me, so why am I going to show up on time? Like, they're going to keep me anyway.
Right.
And
sometimes you got to feel the weight.
Yeah.
And when you buffer that for people, they don't feel the weight of it.
Yeah.
And so that doesn't mean, again, we're not saying that you never encourage people.
Yeah.
I think you should encourage people.
No, I'm a huge encourager.
Outside of the challenge,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Not just when you have the challenge, right? And so we have to then just say, okay, I have to own my triggers. These words by themselves aren't bad. You could be offended. You could be offended by something that's not offensive, right? We when we took over the third church that we took over, remember, they're like, some of them were offended by the holes in the jeans, or some of them offended by the way we dress. The way we dress wasn't offensive, but people can still walk away being offended. Yeah. And then what you do is you make everyone cater to your fragility, right? Everyone cater to, and that's my fear. And I know I'm going to sound like an old fart when I say this. My fear is that everybody wants to move. We have to make sure society moves at the pace of the most fragile person in the room.
Yeah, and that's just going to be the downfall.
And you have to recognize that that's going to slow up every organization. That's going to slow up every relationship when you have to move at the pace of the most fragile person in the room. Again, I'm not saying to stop caring. I'm not saying to be callous. All I'm saying is to own your stuff and get some flipping healing. Go get a counselor. And if that counselor is telling you to, like, hey, don't mess with those type of people, don't expose yourself to these things and that kind of stuff. If they're telling you to shelter themselves, then get a new counselor. Because at the end of the day, you have to go back and live life. Yeah. You have to. Yeah. You're going to get hit in the chin, and you're going to get hit in the chin again and again.
Life doesn't care about your trigger words.
Life does not care about your trigger words.
Does not care what you've been through.
Nope.
If it's going to turn your world upside down, it's going to do it regardless of how you'd like it.
Yep. And so you just have to be a good steward of your healing. Your emotions are great servants. I don't want to demonize even emotions, because there's sometimes we're like, yo, I'm feeling this way. Yeah. I think emotions give room for conversations. They're great servants, but they're horrible masters. Yeah. And I think right now, if we're not cautious, our society is going on this path of emotion is king. This makes me feel bad, and then now, we'll close with this stupid example, but I think it's funny. I forget, over in another country, there were these people protesting against Starbucks because the cost of non-dairy options were more than milk.
Which I think is ridiculous because I can't have dairy.
I know, but think about it.
No, but it is more expensive. I understand that.
Because, like,
they're just dialing down the cost.
Right. And
which people will complain, why are they charging me a surcharge for using a credit card? Well, because the credit card company charges the business that, and when business is down, they can't afford those fees. Like, it is what it is. It's not, they're not trying to be evil. Like, it's just, it's the trickle down effect.
Right. And not everyone is lactose intolerant.
Yes.
Right. And they didn't understand, it's making oat milk and making almond milk and all these other different varieties of lactose free stuff. It just might require more. I don't know. I'm not in that business, but it might require more than just milking a cow. Yeah. Right. But they wanted to protest that. And so you have society needing to make a decision based on the small amount of people, rather than working on a compromise or something different. But again, we're just always trying to train people. Let's move at the pace of the most fragile minority in the room. Yeah. And that, at the end of the day, that's going to break down. Yeah. I believe it's going to break down. And as leaders, you can't do that all the time.
Spoiler alert, a lot of the non-dairy options that establishments use are terrible for you.
That's true.
They have a lot of chemicals and sugar in them. So
Right.
just do black coffee. It's easier.
That's right.
It's better for
Black
you.
coffee, no sugar, no cream. That's the kind of girl I like down with my team.
Oh my goodness.
So learn to own your triggers, right? And learn to like not drop nukes in the middle of conversations emotionally. Own your stuff, get healing, and let's just be better.
Yeah.
Just be better in
Yeah.
relationships. Be better with your emotions and emotionally grow. Don't have a fixed mentality, have a growth mentality.
Love it.
Love it?
Awesome. Well, thank you for chatting it up. This was like Mike's solo episode.
No, you had added it.
I'm teasing. I'll be back with one where I'll monopolize the conversation.
Sure. You monopolize the calendar. That's my weakness.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. But if you enjoyed what you heard today, share the podcast with a friend, subscribe to it, subscribe to the YouTube. You can follow us on Instagram at Mike Rosato, at Jillian Rosato, on TikTok at Mike Rosato, at Jillian.Rosato. Let's campaign to like get me the at Jillian
Yes.
Rosato.
Yes.
It's stupid. I didn't even know what my handle was until it came to this. But we will be back next Wednesday with another podcast. Talk to you later.
Peace.